Hey, and welcome to Matt and Jess TV. I'm Matt Rose here with Jessica Bunbun, and this is our Interview with the Vampire Season 2, Episode 4, reaction and review. Once again, I think the producers of this show are doing a very good job of making us feel like right when we start to get settled into something, they completely just like tear that away from us. It's sort of like you're at a dinner and somebody like tries the whole tablecloth trick where they're pulling the tablecloth, but unfortunately in doing it this way they're spilling things all over the place and we don't know how to pick them up again.
Listen, Armand is out here playing mind games, and I feel like the show is now playing mind games with me too. That
Yeah.
whole ending with Daniel at the computer and seeing all these things that he's been like being surveillanced from the 70s all the way till now, everything, trying to remember Armand and what is going on. I left this feeling like I'm being mind controlled as well. Like, I do not know what is happening.
This is a part of the fun of going into this show and not really knowing, the Anne Rice material that well.
Hmm.
Like you've read the book, but it's been a long time. I haven't read the
Right.
book at all. And so I'm sort of sitting back and being like, okay, is Armand playing Daniel? Is that what's going on? But then also, we have all watched 2 million different vampire shows slash red
Oh,
vampire
yes.
stuff over the years. And so I'm just sort of in my head, I'm thinking, okay, do vampires on this show have the same abilities as a True Blood, as a What We Do in the Shadows? What could Armand do to Daniel's memory?
Yeah, that's the biggest question I have coming out of this episode. And if you guys know the answer, don't tell us. But if you
Yeah.
don't know the answer and you want to jump into some theories and discussion, leave it in the comments. Is what is Armand actually doing with Daniel? Is it just a mind game of memories that aren't real that he's putting into Daniel? Well, Daniel's getting really confused to be like, that whole bag story, did that really happen? Or did it happen and Armand is pulling that out to make him feel bad about some of the worst things that he's done? Because if Daniel did this, oh my God, it's just horrible, horrific, so grim to do that to another person.
We're, we're going to try to get into that. We'll unpack everything, of course, that's going on in the past as well. But before we go further, be sure to hit that subscribe
Mhm,
button because we do have a lot more coming on Interview with the Vampire this
mhm.
season, building up to what is hopefully going to be an awesome finale. And by subscribing, you help to support us to make this content that we really love to do for you guys so much.
We're also going to be covering House of the Dragon here, and The Boys is
Yeah.
coming up, The Bear. I mean, there's a lot of really exciting stuff here at the channel. So, yeah, hit that subscribe button, and thank you so much to everyone who has subscribed.
Okay, so in general, I'll just say from the start, and then, this is in life too. I like to give people a chance. And I think in season one, we were very invested in this idea of, Louis and Lestat. And Lestat's no saint. Let's put that out there. But here is Armand, who's sweeping in as this new, great quote unquote love. And so I'm sitting back and being like, okay, I'm gonna give this guy a chance. I'll see what he's like. I'll see what his vibe is. Vibes aren't great with Armand in episode 4. I will just say that. He's kind of a jerk.
Yeah, it's tough because to really understand even in life when you're at the beginning of a relationship and
Mhm.
things, in that first year are very like, oh, lots of either gifts or travel, love, you want to be with this person all the time, they're your whole life. It's like there's a fine line between, what is real love and what is a relationship that's coming together and what is kind of like love bombing over here where it's like this where it's, oh, I'm giving these, Romeo and Juliet and these walks and this love. And we had Louis even saying, listen, like, companions, I don't know if I'm there yet. I'm enjoying my time with you. I love you, but like, I'm not ready to be there. Where Armand is, I'm all in. It's us. We're together. I haven't felt this way since, 100 years ago with Lestat. And now I'm here with you and I'm in love. Let's go. We companions, right?
Yeah.
And he does end up getting there, Louis, by the end of this episode, where we see Lestat start to actually fade away, where Louis has basically brought his Lestat with him to this bench to break up with him and to be like, I'm moving on. My time with you is done. He's fading away, telling this story of how he sewed his name in his suit to be next to his heart. I'm like, stop. It's so cute. But he's ready to move on. Armand comes and meets him and he's like, okay, I'm ready. We're companions. But like you said, there's some manipulative stuff that's going on in the past. We saw what he did with Claudia, where he's basically like, I know what you guys did to Lestat, so you are going to do what I say because I will just hold this over you forever. And it's just like really the first time that I've seen that Armand is like this, where it was like, oh wow, it's very obvious. This is not great.
I'm getting the sense now that, vampires, they're a lot like people, everyone. This is a ridiculous statement, but this works in the way
Of
that
course they are. They used to be alive people, now they're undead people.
I think but the funniest thing about all this, and I think a lot of us are also like this, where, we go through the years of our lives and we think that, okay, as we get older, we get wiser. And in some ways that may be true, but in other ways, getting older may just sort of accentuate certain problems or character flaws that you have. And I think Armand, I think, wants to love. I think he likes the idea of love. He likes this idea of being loved, but I don't think Armand actually knows what love is, because so much of his whole courtship of Louis is based on this idea of, okay, I have to get him. I have to get him on my terms at a fairly fast pace. He's making it so that he can have Louis before Louis is ready. And then once he has him, so much of the story then becomes, okay, well, then I have to keep him. I have to control him. I have to make sure nothing goes awry, to the extent that, like, here is Claudia, who has been around Louis for such a long period of time. I'm going to work to deliberately produce more misery for her, whether it's hanging this Lestat thing over her, whether it is the, oh, you don't like this outfit that you're performing in, well, then you're just going to wear it all the time, which is just such a horrible thing to do to somebody. And it just feels like he is so deliberate and so controlling with everyone that he wants this relationship on his terms, and he's not willing to listen to anybody else.
Yeah, a lot of it feels like it's stemming from his relationship with Lestat, where Lestat ended up really using him to be able to learn about the powers, how to, manipulate the powers himself. And then as soon as Lestat got what he wanted, he bounced. And Armand was left really heartbroken on that. And it almost feels like he's made this pledge to himself that if he is ever going to love again, that person is never going to do that to him again. They are never going to leave him. He is going to make sure that that person stays with him no matter what.
Yeah.
And it does seem like that is where we are with the controlling aspect of it. He's trying to control Claudia, like you said, make her wear the dress. Is quite dark and mean to do to somebody. He knows what she's going through. She's trapped in a child's body, but she's a full grown woman. She's trying to find herself, figure out how to manage that, but then you're going to put her in this little girl's dress and make her sing little girl songs 500 times. It's going to get to her over time. So trying to break Louis and Claudia from each other is just another tactic for Armand to have Louis.
Yeah. And I think Armand realizes that, okay, if I just make Claudia really, really unhappy, then she's going to be like to Louis, why are you around this guy? Why is X, Y, or Z happening? And because I already have Louis reeled in to a certain extent, it's going to cut off this option from him. I mean, he's basically trying to cut off every other option for socialization or independence that Louis could possibly have. And how it's all going about is really sad, because, I want to be there to Louis and just shake him and be like, this is not the way it has to be, my man, but nobody's there for him.
Yeah, that's why when Claudia told Louis off for spilling their secret, and she was just like, oh my God, like, you gave me this big speech in the carriage about how if I was the only vampire left, that would be enough for you. But like, I wasn't enough for you with Lestat. It was always about him. And now we're here and now it's all about Armand. You're sharing very personal secrets that could get us killed with this other vampire when I have been rolling with you for years. Like, why are you doing this to us? Like, it's us. Like, it's fine that Armand is in here, but you can't share something that could put me to death or you to death without asking me if it's okay. This is my life as well that you're making this decision about. And now he's just holding it over me to be like, okay, you're going to be the puppet. You're going to wear the dress. You're going to give a really good performance every time. You're going to put your whole heart into it and you're going to do it until the end of time.
I will say, I think the show has done a pretty good job of sort of building this up with Armand because they're not,
Yeah.
I feel like they're not too on the nose with it, where it's just like every single second of the day. It's not like it's extremely subtle here either, but it feels like they have kind of towed that line really well so that they've kind of built this up with Armand over these first few episodes so that now we're all in this spot that's not that dissimilar from where Daniel is, where it's just like straight up confusion. You think you know some stuff, but it's then also, do I really know this stuff? What's this other piece over here? What is this doing? I don't have any recollection of this at all.
Yeah, which was the biggest confusion. I mean, we watched the end of this episode a few times
Yeah.
now to really understand what's going on. I mean, some of it is what we talked about a little bit earlier with Armand, with that idea of like, is Armand planting memories that didn't happen with Daniel, but Daniel thinks that they happened? Or did they happen and Armand is pulling out these really bad memories and things that Daniel has serious regret over? At least I would hope so, because that, as I said,
Yeah.
that bag story is grim.
Like, if I'm going to sort of put this tinfoil hat on here
Mhm.
for a moment, and this is why I like the present day story so much. It's hard to put a tinfoil hat on things that are in the past and already settled, but I feel like Armand just wants this interview to end, and he wants this interview to end and be compromised and be over with as soon as possible because I think he knows once Louis's story is really out there for everybody, then Louis kind of becomes a part of everybody. It's less about his Louis at that point. So I think he is working to sabotage this in as many different ways
Mhm.
as possible because he can't come out and be like, don't do this interview, Louis, because then that's going to create another huge problem all on its own. But, it starts with the photographs and this idea that, Louis thinks he has these things he can share with Daniel, but then, he realizes that these aren't all his photographs and something has happened. Like this has been sabotage. So already Louis's credibility is being thrown off to Daniel if Daniel thinks that Louis is trying to pass off some of these as his own. And that's before you even get into everything you were talking about at the end of this episode, where then it's sort of like, okay, is Daniel himself being compromised by Armand?
Yeah, because we hear Armand and Louis fighting over the photos
Yeah.
where Louis feels like Armand is the person who put the photos in there. I feel pretty confident that he's the person who put those photos in there
Yeah.
as well. And yeah, maybe he is trying to sabotage the interview, make Louis look bad so that Louis will then have to draw back into him again. But it was very interesting that at that same time, we have Daniel going through old records, listening to this recording where he can hear the same thing happening where Armand and Louis are fighting in the past. He doesn't have, a visual of it, but there's this recording where it sounds like, Armand is upset because Louis has been spending time with somebody else or that there's somebody else that's been around, and not necessarily in a romantic way, but Armand doesn't want anybody near Louis. And since this has been going on since, time now, they've been together for over 70 years, that this is still going on now, where it's like, it's not about a boy, but it's about Louis being able to sort of have control over himself.
I think because this has also gone on for so long, Louis may not know or remember any other way. So he may just think subconsciously, like a lot of this is natural, that it's just a part of his life, that he's in these situations that Armand is going to get jealous. He has to be very careful. He has to walk on eggshells. Armand's even got to be there for some of the interviews. But like all this stuff with Daniel, too. Just go back to a couple of episodes ago where we see this sort of confrontation happen where Armand starts throwing out things about, Daniel's past and
Mhm.
everything he's gone through and trying to throw him off the scent. Like you could sort of sit back and be like, okay, well, Daniel was getting a little bit salty and a little bit just like, piercing with his questions. He had some of that coming, but it's sort of at the same time, Armand you know what you're doing. You know some of what's going on here. Like we've said, I've tried to steer clear of a lot of spoilers out there, but I
Mhm.
know in the greater Anne Rice universe, there's a lot of people who just do not like Armand, and I'm starting to be like, you know what? I think I get it, guys. I think I'm seeing why.
Yeah, after the way he spoke to Claudia and what he was doing to her, I'm not an Armand fan either. I
Yeah,
mean, when we first were introduced to him at the end of last season, I was like, "Oh, they're so cute." Like,
yeah,
look at the smile on Louis' face. He looks like he's just like wholesomely, genuinely happy. This is really nice to see.
yeah.
However, now we're here, right?
Mhm.
So, it's kind of like, we're crossing the bridge now and it's burned. And it's so different than when we were first presented with Armand. And the same, I'm sure, is with Louis. When he was first presented with Armand, he felt all these wonderful things about him. But then, there's this darkness that's happening as well, where the coven's not really respecting him the way that they were. He doesn't really have the control that he did. And I know Louis kind of gave him the suggestion to kind of be like, hey, listen, just pass it off to Santiago, and then see how you feel about it. Like, you could be okay with it. We could go do something else, or you could decide to go back, but like, give yourself an option to kind of figure out how to get control over yourself. And it seems like it kind of just moved into like okay, well, I'll just get control over Louis then.
Yeah, Armand feels like he's somebody who has to have that in some shape or form, however it ends up coming about. If he can't have it with the Coven, he can have it with Louis. That's going to be enough for him for the time being.
Mhm.
In the present, I just find myself, I'm spending probably way more time in the present than I really need to with this show, given how much it is. But I'm just sitting back and being like, I want Louis to be happy because I'm so invested in this character. He seems like at his best, he can be a very good person slash vampire. So is there anyone out there who can really help him to see some of this? And it does go back to a question that's obviously been on my mind all season. Where's Lestat? Bro, you're alive. You're not dead. You're living off the rats. It has been a long time since you were left there. Where are you?
That bridge is burned.
I'm not saying Lestat is an angel. I'm not saying I'm like Team Lestat and Louis in that sense. Lestat was certainly bad for his own right, but he can pull Armand and Louis apart, and then Louis can run away from Lestat too.
Listen, what I want to see is it can't be that Armand or Lestat or even Daniel are like the savior of Louis. I want to see Louis get out of this interview himself, where he can hear himself talking about, almost like therapy. You go to therapy,
Mhm,
your therapist doesn't really help you. They just kind of listen to you, but
mhm.
you hear back some of the things that you say. And sometimes that can be enough to sink in with you,
Yeah.
where the questioning from the person on the other side gets you to really think back and be like, oh, wow, I really would like to change that about myself. Or, oh, wow, I can do better than Armand and
Mhm.
Lestat. I can do better for myself. There was a period of time in Paris where he was kind of on his own. Like, he was a little bit with Armand, but he was like, yeah, we're not companions.
Mhm.
I'm a photographer. I'm doing my own thing. I'm trying to find myself, who I am. And I think and hope that the interview is going to be the thing where Louis really digs into his deeper emotions. He deals with some of his trauma and he really listens to what's going on so that he is able to heal and move on himself.
Yeah, that's the most important thing I think for almost any person in a situation like this. You got to figure
Yeah.
things out for yourself.
The biggest problem is intelligence is listening in on them. And it seems like, from what Daniel saw on his computer, this has been going on since the 70s. I mean, there's like files in there that say surveillance, and it's pictures of Daniel and Louis. So, I
Yeah.
mean, this has been going on a very long time. So, even if Louis gets what he needs out of it, is intelligence going to sweep in and do whatever they're planning to do? I mean, it seems like they've been following for a long time, decades.
they're very, very patient. Like, there's a villain on this season of Doctor Who called the One Who Waits. The intelligence, they are the one who waits because they're waiting for a really long time.
What are they waiting
I
for? I
don't,
mean, is it just going to be a lifelong study, or
yeah.
are they waiting to actually bring him in for something else?
And just maybe this just a certain moment that happens where they just sort of realize, okay, now's the moment we have to act. I mean, maybe, you basically have to be a vampire to be working in intelligence this long, given how long this whole process is going on. Now, if there's one major beef that I have with this episode, and really it's the past
Oh.
couple, I want more Santiago. I'm just, Ben Daniels is very interesting in this role. He's been sort of set up as this interesting counterpoint, but it's sort of like we're not getting enough of him. And I don't know if it's just he's the vampire who looks the most like me, and I'm just sort of like, okay, I need to get a little bit more of that, or if it's just the character is so interesting. But I just think they're cramming a lot of plot into a pretty short amount of time in these first 4 episodes, and I know there's a lot of material they have to
Mhm.
go through. They got to keep it moving. But could we get a few more minutes an episode and kind of, add more to the other characters?
Yeah, it felt good, at least in this episode, that we had more of him with Claudia, sort of
Mhm.
like an understanding. She's breaking one of the rules already by journaling, but he's used that to his advantage as well after he kind of overhears some of what was said with Armand and Claudia.
Mhm.
He ends up going to their apartment, looking through her diaries, finding some stuff, probably about Lestat. I mean, this next episode is going to be pretty crazy with him if he's basically like, all right, we're going to have a meeting at this point. So, I mean, Armand may have been thinking of leaving as Coven leader, but this information might just be, you're not leaving, you're getting kicked out.
It feels a lot like these first 4 episodes are really just like getting a bunch of firewood, bringing it back to the campfire, but knowing that somebody is about to come in with a flamethrower at any given moment because we're setting the table for some really huge stuff here. Like we know
Yeah.
some of what happens to the theater. We don't know what happens to Claudia, but she's not there. We know that people are watching Daniel. There's a lot of really bad things that are being set up.
Yeah, we know she's not there because they have her diary. She's not
Yeah.
there. I said in the last video, we don't know what happened. So,
Yeah.
that part of it, if you guys don't mind, don't spoil it. But after seeing Armand and the way that he was treating Claudia, and he does want, to split Claudia away from Louis, at least so what it feels like, so that Armand can have Louis all to himself. And, she has broken some laws and he is the Coven leader. Like, is he going to be the person to then just kill her? Is that something, and if he does, is that something Louis knows about? I don't think so. I don't think
Yeah.
he would ever stand for that or stay with Armand. Is any of this going to end up coming out if that's the way that it goes? But the one big question we have sort of coming out of this as well is, who's Catherine Mitchell and why does Daniel care? Like, we saw this whole list
Yeah.
of people he was looking through, and then he got stuck at Catherine Mitchell. Again, we haven't read the source material, so if it's in there, don't let us know about it. But it's definitely something they lingered on.
Yeah, there's a lot of little things in these final few minutes of this episode that are very much like DVR friendly, where you just want to pause them, you want to take a
Yeah.
look at them. Like,
Yes.
we took a look at those photos too. We were trying to sort of figure out, okay, who are all these people? Like they've clearly put a lot of effort into a lot of things on this show, and I want to believe that
Yeah.
it's all very, very deliberate and
Yes.
it's being set up for some really big stuff. But yeah, to go with what you said about Claudia, I can't think for a second that Louis would know if Armand had something to do with
No.
taking her out, because it's like, Armand is being kind of clandestine when it comes to his sabotage of the interview, knowing how Louis might feel. I think Louis would go after somebody who did something to Claudia.
Yeah, my theory, so
All
my
right.
tinfoil
All right.
hat's now on too, is we know that the theater gets burned.
Mhm.
That's something
Yeah.
that Daniel asked about in the interview, and Armand was kind of like, we didn't give you that information. Where'd you get that information from? He's like, oh, my assistant thinks we're doing whatever, this piece on whatever, and she found it for it. But he got very defensive about that. So my theory is that if he's going to kill Claudia, or the Coven's going to kill Claudia, or whatever's going to happen to Claudia, that she probably burns in that theater going down. And that if Louis doesn't know that maybe he set the, Armand set the fire or whatever, that Armand is now really worried that that is going to come out because Louis wouldn't know. I don't think Louis knows. If Louis knew that Armand had anything to do with Claudia's death, they would not be together. But now that Daniel has that little piece of information about the theater burning down, Armand seems extra worried and was pushing a little bit harder with these memories of the bag story and getting into Daniel's mind, that now he's really like, okay, I really need to sabotage this now.
It's a good point with the theater burning, and now I'm really worried going, because that's a really terrible way to somebody to
I
go. And now I'm just
know.
like, no, don't do that. Even though I know this is a heartbreaking show with a lot of really difficult things in it,
Yep.
it's just I'm invested in these people. I'm still really enjoying this season, but we'll see where things go. We still
Yep.
have a good bit of time to go, so be sure to hit that subscribe button so you guys don't miss any other discussions on Interview with the Vampire season 2. Also, thank you so much to our patrons
Thank
for
you.
your support, and we'll see you here next time.